welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. I'm Nina and this is Spencer's Ark. I upload vlogs and general bits and bobs to do with parenting twins, and especially two sets of twins. Today I'm here after a big gap other than a couple of vlogs with a very special video. It is my trying to conceive, pregnancy and birth video all in one. So in August 2017 we had our second set of twins and the birth was quite traumatic. So today I'm here with the twins who I keep watching. So today I'm here with the twins to tell you my story. In January 2017 we came back from our New Year holiday in Lanzarote and I was feeling a bit poorly. A week went by and I was late for my period, so I took the test and it was positive, much to my shock. Our other set of twins were actually cloned babies, so they were fertility drugs and they took 5 years to get here, but that's another story. So yeah, sort of straight away knew I was pregnant and decided to book an early scan to make sure that there was only one. So at what we thought was about 7 weeks, we headed to Sheffield to a private clinic to have the early scan. When the sonographer scanned my tummy, I could see straight away that there was 2 sacs. And I swore. And for the next 4 months I spent it in tears. I just knew how much hard work the other 2 were. Having 2 at a time, it's not easy. So my first trimester I was quite sick with morning sickness that lasted all day long. And yeah, as I said, I was crying for most of it. The sickness, the only way to ease the sickness was to keep eating little biscuits or crackers or stuff. Just terrible, really. I piled the weight on quite quickly. By the second trimester, as I said, I was in pain with my hips. I was a bit in denial, even though my bump was growing. And because of the pain of my hips, I couldn't do as much with the big 2. Felt guilty. Grandparents had to step in and look after them a lot. And then, so when I'd finally got my head around the fact we was having another 2 babies, I was actively seeking ways to promote natural labour. I had to have a C-section with the first 2 due to them being breech, but I was trying so hard for these 2 to come out naturally. The scans had said that Mason was lying down and Jessica was lying across. They all pointed to a okay for having a natural labour. Then at 35 weeks I had a scan which said that my placenta was low, and they said it must have been low all of the time because placentas don't normally drop, but they normally go up as your uterus grows. So they'd obviously missed it, which is an easy mistake when there's 2 in there and it's so hard to see. So a caesarean section was booked for 37 weeks. I was obviously not very happy about it, but knew that I had to get into a positive frame of mind so that it wasn't as scarring as the first one. Then I ended up with going in for my steroid injections for their lungs, for the baby's lungs. And the day before I went in, I was having niggles in my back. I wouldn't describe them as labour pains, just dull period pains. Told the midwife decided to put me on the ward, and my consultant came round the next morning and said she thought there was something more going off, which she didn't really say. So they sent me to a different hospital because they said they couldn't deal with me there. Went to the other hospital where they informed me they thought I had placenta accreta. Which is where the placenta attaches itself to your uterus. So I had to stay at Doncaster Royal Infirmary for 4 days. They found that my iron was very low and quite dangerously low for labour anyway. So I had to have a iron infusion. They told me I had to I went for a scan and they confirmed that there was something not right with the placenta. So ended up booking me in for an MRI, which had to be done at Sheffield, Hallamshire. On the Monday I was discharged from Doncaster and with an appointment to attend the MRI the following day and to take it easy, as if I went into labour it could have been quite dangerous. So the following day we went to the Hallamshire at Sheffield and met with Dr. Whitby, who is one of the top doctors that deals with placenta issues and does the MRIs for those kind of issues. When we went in, she said, I highly doubt that's what it is. It's very rare. It's so rare that you might be fine. Had the scan, which brought on my anxiety. So in an MRI machine you lay down flat, and obviously being 8 months pregnant with twins and with a reflux issue, laying down brought the acid on. So, and then I panicked, and then my anxiety got me, so I ended up pressing the panic trigger, and they had to start all over again, and that happened twice. So it took so long. When I came out, I just knew by the look on her face that it wasn't good news. So Dr. Whitby told me that I'd got placenta accreta, which means the placenta grows through your uterus and invades other organs. She said it was very close to my bladder, but she couldn't tell 100% whether it was touching it or it had invaded it, and they wouldn't know until I went into surgery. Surgery meant that not only was I having a C-section, but the likelihood is I was going to be having a hysterectomy as well. And with that there would be other complications like blood loss, the chance that my bladder might need reconstructing, and she said that I should go home, attend my appointment that was the next day with my consultant, but make sure I had my bag packed because I would be being sent back to stay at the Jessup wing, which is attached to the Hallamshire Hospital in Sheffield, until they could book me in for my big operation. The operation meant that there would be a team of 30 plus people in the operating room. It meant that I would have to go to sleep for it under general anaesthetic. It meant that I wouldn't be able to see my baby straight away, and neither would Chris. It meant that I would have to stay away from my family. leave the big twins with Grandma and prepare for a longer stay after the operation. Little did I know how long the stay afterwards was going to be. So we went home after the appointment. We had tea at Chris's mum's. Told her the outcome of the appointment. I made sure I'd got everything in my bag. We got some change for the car park. We spent some time with the big twins, and the next morning I got up early, had my cup of tea in the garden like I had been doing most mornings. I headed to my mum's where the kids were staying, and I brushed Melody's hair, which felt like it was the last time I was going to do it. We said bye because I never thought that I would get to see them again, because the outlook was so bleak. Right, I'm back to try and finish the rest of this video now. We've actually had lunch and fed babies and tried to have a nap, although they didn't want to nap. So, where was I? As I said, we came home. The following morning we said bye to the big twins, and we went to the consultant appointment. When we got there, she said she'd not received any paperwork from Hallamshire about my MRI. I told her what Dr. Whitby had said, and I told my midwife, and my midwife was so good. She chased it up, and because I was really upset, because I knew that Dr. Whitby wanted me in Jessop's to make sure I was in a safe place in case I went into labour. My midwife told me to go and sit and get a cup of tea while she phoned round, and then she sent me to Jessop's. So we headed over to Jessop's, which is like nearly 2-hour drive from us. And when we got there, one of the midwives there, the nurses, showed me to my room, which was like something out of it was like a travel lodge room, just with a hospital bed in. It had my own ensuite bathroom and a lovely mural on the wall, and a flat screen telly. And she said, she sort of implied that I didn't know the extent of why I was there. So within half an hour of me getting there, my surgeon came to meet me, Dr. Farkas, Mr. Farkas. He was quite old school and straight to the point, telling me all the things that could go wrong, like the blood loss and the nicking of the bowel or the bladder, meaning that they'd have to repair that. It just bang, 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 and by the time he'd done, I was numb and crying, and I just didn't know what I felt anymore. At the time, I compared it to, not that I've ever known, but I compared it to somebody that's been told they've got cancer. It was that kind of numb feeling that people say they get. So after he'd gone, my anaesthetist Ruth came to see me, and she introduced herself, and she calmed me down, and she made plans for after the surgery. She told me what her role would be in the surgery, and now after the surgery she told me stage by stage, so that I'd need to, when she woke me up, I would need to breathe, and then they would take the oxygen away but I wouldn't remember it, and just stuff like that. Just things for after the surgery to give me the hope that there was an after the surgery. And they both said if I'd got any questions, because obviously this was day one of me finding out that I'd got the placenta precreta, that I should write them all down and they'd be back daily, which they were. Every day Ruth came to see me to make sure I was okay and to answer any questions that I'd thought of that day. The midwives there were amazing. They let Chris stay overnight with me because with me having anxiety as well, it would have been a very, very lonely place. It felt quite lonely anyway, because it's such a rare condition that there was nobody else to talk to. The only person I found was in America, and I found her on Instagram. So I managed to, talk to her, and she, taught me through things that had happened with her and the different stages I'd go through. But it just felt quite a lonely place without anybody there. That, a hysterectomy is quite a common operation. A C-section is quite a common operation, but the two together with the placenta precreta and the blood loss, it's just quite a scary place to be in. So as I say, Chris was allowed to stay on the sofa bed, and the nurses even fed him because he just wouldn't eat and wouldn't drink. So they even made him eat. And then I was there a week. On the Wednesday, on the Tuesday night, I had my meal. They brought me my gown for the next day, and I can't remember, I think it was 2 AM, I wasn't allowed any more food. So I think about midnight I went outside and had my cup of tea, and we sat outside for a bit. Me and Chris sat outside because there's a balcony at Jessop's. So we sat outside, and I asked anybody who was listening up there to help me through the next day and the following days, and promised that I would do things different if I got through the operation. So the next morning, about 6 AM, I had my last drink and my antacid tablets for the operation. I got a shower, put on my gowns to cover my bump, and I waited till about 8 o'clock, and Ruth and Mr. Farkas came to see me, and he went to scrub up and said he would see me down there, and so did Ruth. And then I was wheeled to Heather Hallamshire to have the operation. Chris came with me to the the area outside the surgery, because he couldn't go in because there was so many. He couldn't go into the anaesthetic room because there were so many theatre staff that they filled both the surgery and the anaesthetic room. So he said goodbye outside, and I went in, and they put a spinal block in. Ruth spoke to me and said I was doing great, and she held my hand, and the next thing I remember is waking up in a recovery room and there'd be theme tunes playing in the background, and my mum, I think, was there, and Chris, and I can't remember at which point they brought me the babies in. But it was like a 5-hour operation. I had 11 litres of blood transfused, and the babies were obviously born. The babies were fine. There was no problems with them at all. They were just a bit sleepy from the anaesthetic. So Chris got to see them more or less straight away. After a while I was transferred to ICU to be kept an eye on overnight. I was on oxygen and I had various monitors everywhere. The monitors, as I drifted off to sleep, the monitors kept beeping, and then I woke up and panicked that something was wrong. And it kept happening all night, so I didn't really get a lot of sleep. I remember trying to breastfeed the babies, but it not really working. The next day I was transferred back over to the Jessup wing to go in what they call AOCU, which is a acute obstetric care unit, I think. Acute obstetric care unit is what I think it's called. It is. So I was in there and my temperature started to soar and I felt a bit flu-like. They rushed everybody, all the babies out in the ward, and because it was like, by this time I was in a ward with 6 bays in it, of all ladies that needed a bit of extra care after their birth. So they wheeled anybody out that could get out, and wheeled in a portable x-ray machine for my chest. I had that, and I'd got a bit of an infection, so I was put on antibiotics, drips, you know, all of that. And I started to feel a bit better, and they found us a side room the next day. So the babies were brought to us. Chris again was staying with us because I was not well enough to look after the babies. I started feeling better, and then I started to go downhill, and my stomach started to swell to the size of bigger than it was when the babies were in there. And because they cut horizontally, my scar started to split. My wound started to, and I was throwing violently sick. I've never seen anything like it before. I was so poorly. I couldn't even bottle feed the babies. Chris was obviously there and the sole carer for the babies at that point, because I couldn't do it. The first time I picked this one up, I was sick all over him, all over me, all over Chris's shoes, all over the nurse. I was. So it was the first time I'd managed to have a shower after the operation, and it was about 4 days in, I think. So my wound got worse and worse. In the end, it split to 3 centimetres deep. They fetched surgeons in from different areas of expertise, and they decided to send me for another scan to check that there weren't any blockages, because I'd still not had a bowel movement at this point. They said I'd just got a lazy bowel, but they decided to send me for a scan anyway, because they needed to close my wounds back up, and that had to be done in surgery because of how deep it had gone. When I went for the scan, they said, before the scan, because I was so sick, they'd put me a endoscope and ent tube in, so I'd got a bag, and my stomach contents, I was nil by mouth, I couldn't keep anything down, so I was on a drip, and the contents, what was left in my stomach, was coming out of my nose. Lovely. into the bag. So then I went for the scan with this bag, and I came back and Ruth came in and she said, it's very rare, but then your bowel's twisted. Apparently what had happened is when you have abdominal surgery, it is a very rare complication, but sometimes they can just touch the bowel a little bit, and obviously with 2 babies to get out and bleeding to stop and a uterus to take out as well, it was a bit of a rush, so they must have just hit my bowel a little bit and it spasmed and twisted. So that meant I needed to go back to sleep and back to surgery for my bowel to be untwisted. Luckily that day my mum had come to see us and she stayed with Chris and the babies in a room on one of the wards. It was 10:30 at night. Ruth was supposed to be going off at like 8 p.m. and she stayed and she called it in and said, I'll cancel my plans and I'll do the operation because I want some continuity of your care and I'm going to do it. So she cancelled her plans and called the surgeon from another hospital to come to Hallamshire and do my operation. Went down and a few hours later I was awake and Chris came to see me, and then I was transferred to the intensive care unit again, where I had a CPAP unit, the oxygen helmet that goes all the way over your head, so that I could, because my lungs had deflated a little bit previously, so they put this CPAP on. ITU again, and I got through the night and I had better night's sleep with the CPAP on than I did the previous time. The next morning I managed to have a wash, got out of bed, got transferred again to the AOCU, so I got transferred back to AOCU. I forgot to say, during the last time before that operation, I'd been transferred from ward to ward to ward because they thought I was getting better, so they would take me back upstairs to just the normal postnatal wards. But then they'd send me back downstairs because I was just too poorly and I needed more care. So I must have been on every ward in that hospital by the time I left. So yeah, after my second surgery, I went back to AOCU and back to my little room in the corner where there was no windows. Back to my babies, back to Chris, who was still staying with me. And I started to get better and better and better. The wind from the operation in my shoulders was horrendous, and the pain in my stomach was not the best either. But I managed to get myself put back upstairs on the postnatal ward, and after another week of no bowel movement and panicking that it had happened again, I managed to have a bowel movement, and the next day we went home. We came home, didn't we, baby? And now we are 9 months out. And loads better from our op, aren't we? Mummy's still healing tummy muscles. But I think, to be honest, I'm over the trauma of it all. The hysterectomy hasn't really hit me, I don't think, until these are now like 9 months and no longer newborn. the fact that with 2 sets of twins, I'm never going to have any more anyway. But the choice has been taken away, so it's a bit of a that's your lot. So yeah, all in all, it was a traumatic birth, but for me, I was out of it most of the time on morphine and drugs and just under general anaesthetic. But I think the trauma hit Chris more than it did me. But that's my birth story. That's the birth story for these two. And yeah, it's took me quite a while to share everything with you because it was just so hard for me to get my head around having another two. And then not being able to have a natural labour, and followed by the most horrendous birth possible, probably. Or maybe not. I didn't know anything about it, did I? I was asleep. And we've got these two beautiful creatures out of it, haven't we? Even though you don't sleep. Say hello. Say hello. Say hello. Hiccups. So that's our Pakrita birth story. A bit intense, I'm sorry. This weekend we are doing an event with the Jessop's crew. It is the Jessop Superhero Walk, and we are walking 2.5 miles around, 2.5 kilometres around a park in Sheffield. I forget which park. We're doing a 2.5 kilometre walk around the park in Sheffield, Graves Park in Sheffield. And I'm still asking for sponsors because I'd like to raise £1,000. So I'll leave the details below in the description. If you got to the end of this video and you're still with us and not fainted, don't forget to hit the like button, click the subscribe button and click the notification bell, because I'm going to be filming a vlog on our walk day and we're all going to be dressed as superheroes. So we'll see you next time. Bye. I just quickly also wanted to say there is more details about my the birth story in about 4 parts on the blog, and I'll leave details about that below as well. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye. 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 Say bye.